Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Hope you're having a good day. Let's get started because earlier this week we were talking about Jaime Spears and Britney Spears and her father's recent involvement in an altercation with her son, Sean Preston. Everything happened on August 25th, or 25th, 25th, when Britney had a visitation with her sons Jaden and Preston. And during the visitation, according to a police report filed by Kevin Federline in Ventura County Police Department, Jaime became physical with Preston. Now, there's been some more details that have come forward about what happened and how this fallout has impacted her conservatorship. So here's how everything has played out thus far. So the reports are that Preston was asked to do something by his grandfather, decided he didn't want to do it, and he went into a room or something and decided to avoid his grandfather. His grandfather was not happy with that and apparently busted the door down and then violently shook him, which resulted in Britney responding appropriately and quickly and swiftly removing her children and ending the visit with her grandfather, and taking them back home and then calling Kevin Federline to pick up the children. So there's been a lot of movement since then. So the next day, Kevin Federline found out, or that day obviously, found out what happened, and the next day he went down to the police and filed a complaint or press charges, I guess, against Jaime Spears for a domestic violence altercation with his son. And then he also requested a restraining order against his children. The restraining order was then approved and not contested by Jaime or Britney. And then after that happened, an emergency adjustment was made to the custody agreement between Britney and Kevin. So on August 28th, Britney Spears and Kevin agreed to a new custody arrangement, and the court changed custody from them having split 50-50 to Kevin having custody of the boys 90% of the time and Britney getting access only 10% of the time. During all of Britney's visitation with her children, she has to be supervised. Now, the problem here is that her conservator, Jaime Spears, is typically the primary supervisor of all visitation with her children. Now, Britney was really upset after all of this happened and was fearful that her father's ongoing investigation and restraining order would impact her custody, and she became very fearful that she would lose custody of her children, something that she desperately doesn't want to happen. So, as a result, Kevin Federline and Britney and Lynn Spears had all, I guess, Kevin Federline and Lynn Spears had been concerned about whether or not it was appropriate for Jaime to continue to be the conservator if there's a restraining order, because someone needs to be with Britney when she's with the kids, someone needs to be able to oversee them, and because the children are Britney's and she's part of a conservatorship, she should have someone that doesn't have a restraining order out against the children. What a mess, right? So, what happens today? Well, in Los Angeles Superior Court, according to court records that I was able to obtain, Jaime Spears filed for a temporary removal of conservator from her conservatorship. And what that means is that he is stepping down as her conservator. This does not dissolve the conservatorship. However, it takes him away from all of the responsibilities at this point in time, and he has already appointed somebody new to this. He's already appointed a new conservator, which the court has agreed to, and it was someone that was already involved with this case. So he basically ends up requesting the removal. The court agrees, and then what happens is he requests that Jody Montgomery, who is a care manager of Britney's files, be the new conservator, she has been overseeing all of the care of Britney for the past year anyway. And so she agreed to take on that responsibility. And then following that, he requested to transfer the power to restrict or limit visitors by any means, the power to retain caretakers and security for Britney on a 24-hour basis, the power to prosecute civil harassment and restraining orders, and the power to communicate with medical personnel regarding Britney and to have full access to her medical and psychiatric records. So she agreed, and the court is approving. Now, interestingly, Jaime Spears in court filed that Britney refused to be a part of this hearing. She is still very upset with her father, and she does not, she didn't want to be in court, but she also did not dissent or disagree with his removal as a conservator. Now, his request is only until January of 2020, and there's still no discussion about whether or not the conservatorship will end at all, because there's still ongoing evaluations being done on Britney and every aspect of the conservatorship at this time. Now, interestingly, I think we should note that a lot of this uproar could be in relation to a lot of major health issues that Jaime has been going through in the past year. If you haven't followed the story, in November of 2018, Jaime Spears was rushed to the emergency room and he had to undergo surgery because his colon spontaneously ruptured, along with an enlarged part of his bowel and intestines. The rupture of his colon was so severe that he almost died and he had to undergo emergency surgery. He was in the hospital for quite some time following that, and that emergency illness prompted Britney to go through a phase where she became very anxious and her mental health started to suffer. Now, even though he was released, he was anticipated to have a long road to recovery. And then in March of this year, he had to undergo a second operation to try to repair parts of his colon along with other parts of his bowel and intestines, I believe. And that specific surgery was more extensive than the first one and had a longer road of recovery. And so Jaime, in his filing with the court, gave his reason of stepping down as his health. And given the fact that he's had major surgeries on his colon and in the past, 2 major surgeries on his colon in the past year and almost died, it might not be unrealistic to believe that that recovery could have been impacting his ability to effectively parent or supervise Britney at this time. It makes you wonder if he's been prescribed any medications that might be causing him to have irritability. Now, the family has noted that he does have a temper, but obviously if he's had any form of surgery to repair any parts of your body, medications or any medications he's on for maybe replacements, maybe some of those things could have been impacting him. But clearly the past year has taken a toll on Jaime, and also he's doing probably what he should have done maybe a while ago when everything went out and he was when he was sick. He probably should have transferred over the conservatorship at that time. So, I see people saying that the video is frozen, but I don't see a frozen video at all. Okay, thank you for that. So, at this time, this other woman, Jody Montgomery, will take over. And sadly, I think Britney's biggest fear is that her father's continued involvement with the kids would ultimately lead to her permanent removal of custody of her children. And she's already gotten such a diminished role in her children's lives at this time. I'm not sure whether or not this change in conservator would maybe increase her access to her children. It's fair to say that the reduction in custody could also be in response to her own mental health the past year. In March, she actually checked into a facility to treat her ongoing mental illness. According to her manager, Larry David, to TMZ, he said that in the fall of 2018, the medications that she had been taking for a really long time had stopped working, coupled with her father's illness. It spiraled her into a very unhealthy place, and her illness was not well managed. And so in order to get her stabilized, they had to put her back in treatment and work on a different cocktail of medications. Thus far, since her return, she's been pretty good. I mean, she hasn't been posting as frequently on Instagram, but she's been posting on Instagram. It's hard to know where she's at. She had her last she's had several conservatorship hearings, but the last time she appeared in court was in May. And at that appearance, she entered the courtroom without shoes on. So it's been like 4 months since then. So not to say that things haven't gotten better, but obviously careful monitoring of her mental health at this point is probably a necessity given how fragile she became this spring. At this point, this is good news, I guess, for Britney, because now her father will no longer be an impact on her access to her children, and she should have someone new to supervise the kids. And it's good to know that even though everything went down, Kevin has been supportive of her, and also publicly through his attorney saying that Britney has done everything that she should be doing, has always been a loving and devoted mother, and that he would never want to take away the boys' access to her because they love her unconditionally and she loves them very much. So at this point, it sounds like Britney will have a little bit of freedom, maybe from her family, not necessarily from the conservatorship, and we'll see what happens next. Obviously, this is an ongoing case, and the DA is currently determining whether or not they're going to press charges against Jaime. And if and when charges do arise, I will keep you posted, and I'll also keep you posted on anything that comes up in relation to her status with her conservatorship. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon, and I'll be back in a little bit with more on the Chrisleys. Bye.